Did you know that around half of all the cut flowers that we have here in Australia that are sold are actually imported? And we expect that our food is labelled. We like to know where it's come from, where it's grown. I think we're really proud of being able to support local producers. And I have spoken at length about seafood in particular and where our seafood comes from. We understand we have a lot of it that's imported. We know that we export a lot of it. But I think we like the idea that it is very clear to us when we purchase seafood if it's come from Australian waters or not. And when it comes to flowers, it seems there are no rules whatsoever. As consumers, we're then in the dark about who grew them, how they were treated at the place where and when I say who grew them and how they were treated, I'm talking about the people who grew them, how they were treated, not the flowers, and also how far they travel to get here. It's something that Bec Thomas, who is the founder of Farmgate Flowers, is determined to change. Now, Bec grew up on a family flower farm in Tasmania, so she knows all about the beauty and the hard work that goes into every single stem. And she had a career in the corporate world, and now she's decided to return to her roots. She actually has a flower shop here in Brisbane. And when I read all about this, actually it was the ABC who had this story today, and I realised that Bec was right here in our own backyard as a local business owner. I thought we'd get her to come onto the show with us this afternoon and explain a little bit more about why she's so passionate that these things change. Welcome to the show, Bec. Thanks for your time.
Hi, Sophie. Lovely to be here. Thank you.
Okay, so tell us the story, because this is all about connecting customers, those of us who like to have fresh flowers or like to purchase them for others, to have a better understanding of where they're from.
So, as you mentioned, I grew up on a flower farm on the northwest coast of Tassie, and I had, beautiful farm fresh flowers in our home every day of the week, and it was such a pleasure. And, I missed that, and I couldn't find that beautiful farm freshness here in Brisbane. And if I did, they weren't as fresh as I would have liked them to have been. And they were really quite unaffordable. But also, secondly, I saw what was happening in our flower industry. As you mentioned, a lot of people don't even think twice about where their flowers come from. And a lot of them are actually imported from overseas. And when they are imported, there's a big process that they have to go through when they're imported. There's stringent biosecurity measures that they have to go through. So there's, that overusage of chemicals. They come from places like Ecuador, Colombia, Kenya, Vietnam. So there's a lot of kilometres there as well. So they're flown all that way. And when they do arrive, they arrive at quite an affordable price. So there's a lot of questions around, labour standards and things like that as well. And obviously, what the consumer is also interested in is ensuring that they have this gorgeous, beautiful freshness and vase life. So that's also compromised, and they don't last as long. And so people lose that trust in flowers. So we're also here at Farmgate, we're trying to rebuild that trust in flowers and locally grown flowers.
And so how do we then, so what do we do then as consumers? One of the things that you're pushing for is that there are some labelling changes and some laws that would say the origin of the flowers. So at least when you see what it is that is available, supermarket, wherever it might be, there's a clearer indication for the consumer of what it is you're buying and where it's come from.
That's right. So when you go to a supermarket, you're quite conscious of what you're buying when you come to fruit and veg. So you might know if your oranges at the moment come from the USA or whether or not they're locally grown. So you can make that conscious, informed decision. So with flowers, there's no mandatory labelling at the moment for cut flowers. So there's no labelling on any of the flowers to tell you where it came from. So people can't make those informed decisions. So what we're trying to do is connect people to the farmers, tell our farm stories, so people can make that informed decision.
Yeah. And I guess a couple of things spring to mind. Do we grow enough flowers in Australia for our market? Is there any suggestion? I mean, we're not saying we're closing the doors to what we import, because that's a business like anything else. But we grow a lot of our own flowers.
Right.
There's a large selection of Australian flowers available, through the year, depending on the season.
Yep.
How much of an impact are imported flowers having on Australian growers then?
Look, there's certain flower varieties that are imported more than others. So we still need imported flowers because we don't have sufficient growers here in Australia to fill that market. And there's a lot of risk involved in getting into flower farming. So it will take years for us to build the Australian flower market to fill that gap. So there is a need for some of the imported flowers, and there are some lovely flowers that do come into Australia. However, there's certain types of flowers. For example, there's a really high portion of roses that are imported from some of these countries.
Yeah.
And they have actually, some of the rose, we used to have hundreds of rose growers in Australia, and because of these cheap imports, it has actually impacted the viability of the growers, and many have gone out of business, which is a shame.
Yeah, and I know that at the end of the day, this ends up being about transparency and information and the power of choice.
Yep.
So what are you hoping?
That's right. Choice.
Yeah. What are you hoping is going to change then for your industry, for the Australian flower industry over the next few years? If you start to have this conversation, I'm sharing it now broadly with listeners who may not have ever really considered it up until this point. What are you hoping is going to change, and how soon could that change come?
Oh, look, I think knowledge is power, and when people are informed, they can make their own personal choices of what's true to their own personal values. And so we just want people to think about where their flowers are coming from. When they pick up a bunch, ask themselves, I wonder who grew these for me. Is it an Aussie farmer? Can I determine whether it's an Aussie farmer? If you walk into our beautiful flower market, you'll be able to see the farm stories on the wall. You'll be able to talk to our beautiful staff.
Yeah.
And they'll be able to tell you exactly where they come from. And so we want to maintain and grow and sustain our local flower industry. And by telling these stories and connecting people directly to their farmer, they can make those more informed decisions of what's truly valuable to themselves. And also they get fresher flowers that last longer in the vase.
Well, that's it. I think that's a big part of it. I know we've all suffered from this idea of buying fresh flowers and they only last a couple of days, especially when we have hot spells like we have at the moment. And finally, before I let you go, I think there's probably a bit of advice that you might be able to give to people who are shopping. It might be more difficult in a supermarket, but I imagine if you're going to a florist, you can ask those questions. How can you empower somebody to ask those questions? How do you tell whether or not a flower is grown in Australia? Is it just a matter of like the fishmonger? Is that farmed or is that fresh? Is it line caught? Is it from Australia or is it from Thailand? Like, are we asking questions to our florists?
Yeah, and look, if you go to your local florist, they will be able to tell you where they source their flowers. So there's a lot of very conscious florists who care about, Australian grown and supporting the flower industry. So they will be able to tell you where their flowers come from. But it's really difficult. You can't tell by simply looking at a flower. You do have to actually ask those questions. And the informed florist or, farmer's market, whatever it might be, will be able to tell you exactly where they're from.
Well, you certainly will be able to share this information with anybody who wants to come and talk to you about it further, Bec. Your business is Farmgate Flowers. It's open 6 days a week. You only have Sundays off, 6 a.m. to 1:30. You'll find Bec at Farmgate Flowers. It's at Morley Street in Toowong. So if you're looking for that opportunity to learn a little bit more about what you're buying, where it's from. Rhonda wanted to know specifically how you know if you're buying peony roses that come from Australia. Can you even trust what they're telling you? I guess it's hard to know, Rhonda.
Well, peony roses, the season is actually, we're going to get a few in this week, and the season is from now until through November. So we have flowers in the season. So
yeah, so ask the questions, Rhonda. That's the advice this afternoon. Bec, thanks for jumping on. Really appreciate your time.
Okay, lovely. Thanks for the opportunity. Bye.
Bye.